In a day that should be about reverence, respect, and memory, I think it's important that we look back and remember that Mike Gundy is the GOAT at Oklahoma State. He might always be that dude. That's why it's important for us to both be thankful, but also hopeful that we can rally the troops and send the GOAT out the right way.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more. Now that football season is upon us, make sure that you visit the FanDuel app to start planning your future bets now. Be part of this holiday festivity style of season when it comes to betting with FanDuel. Meanwhile, we get to shift into this conversation of Mike Gundy. Naturally, he is the GOAT of Oklahoma State. He very well may always be that guy. But even though we're in a predicament right now where it does appear as though that the new landscape of NIL, transfer portal, all of this fun stuff seemingly has put Mike Gundy behind the eight ball. The talent gap between Oklahoma State and Oregon is very concerning because when you look back over the last 20 years during Mike Gundy's tenure as the head man, we have never been in a position that we had no chance until this Oregon game. So even though that it is cause for concern, there is still a lot of season left. And although it didn't look super hopeful at the Oregon game, it doesn't mean that the Cowboys still cannot find a way to galvanize amongst themselves and make a massive push. I do think that it would take a 7-win stretch or maybe even 8 wins in a row to kind of counterbalance that Oregon effect. But nonetheless, it is a possibility. Mike Gundy's done it before, but we also got to remember he is the GOAT. He is Mike Gundy. So even if this season doesn't go super swimmingly, and even if this is a mid-season style of firing, I don't want it to be lost that Mike Gundy is the dude. I've seen other fan bases have questions like, well, what has Mike Gundy done? Not only is he winning as coach of Oklahoma State history, he has more 10-win seasons, 9-win seasons, competing for conference titles, things of that nature, than we'd ever had previously. Mike Gundy currently has 179 wins. Took him just under 19 years to accomplish that. Previously, you had to go back 31 years of W's to equal what Mike Gundy did in essentially a little over 18 seasons. Oklahoma State has had 10 9-win seasons under Mike Gundy. Previously, we only had 7 in the history of Oklahoma State University. 8 10-win seasons is what Mike Gundy has to his resume. Previously, Oklahoma State had 3 10-win seasons. 2 of those were when Mike Gundy was the quarterback, handing the ball off to Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders and throwing the ball to Hartley Dykes. The 65% win percentage is currently the second all-time at Oklahoma State. And even then, you have to go back to Lynn Pappy Waldorf in 1929 to 1933. And he is still ahead of Paul Davis, who was here from 1909 to 1914. The only caveat may be Jim Luckenball. Jim Luckenball doesn't have the winning percentage of 65% like Mike Gundy. His was at 58.1%, but he did give us an undefeated season and win a natty. So outside of 1945's Jim Luckenball season, Mike Gundy is that dude. Mike Gundy is that GOAT. So much so that under Mike Gundy's tutelage as the head man, Oklahoma State has been in the top 10 of the AP poll 10 times. Previously, Oklahoma State had only cracked the top 10 of the AP poll 3 times from 1915 to 2008. Oklahoma State has 4 top 5s. Previously, before Mike Gundy, there was only 2. So I think whenever you think back and realize that Mike Gundy is the reason that all of us have the ability to say, well, this isn't enough. This isn't going to suffice. This is not the Oklahoma State expectation. It's because Mike Gundy set that expectation. Again, I go back and bring up the 1991 0-10-1 season, and most of the conversations with the alumni base or the fan base pertaining to removing Mike Gundy ever at Oklahoma State was a death sentence. Essentially, everyone was afraid that Oklahoma State would revert back to those days if we ever did move on from Mike Gundy, and that's very fair to some degree to think that, because before Mike Gundy, we didn't have a lot of success. I think even then, when you go back and look at what we were able to accomplish from 84 to 88, a large portion of that was because that was the first time, to our knowledge, that Oklahoma State dipped into some of the recruiting territories that some of the other schools did. And that's also why we heard from Hartley Dykes that he chose Oklahoma State, because they gave him a gold Trans Am and Texas A&M wasn't going to give him a gold one. And then later on, Dexter Manley came out and said that Oklahoma State basically allowed him to pass all of his classes without ever being in class because they knew he was illiterate to some degree. And the NCAA obviously was going to frown upon that. So doing it the right way from 2005 all the way till now has not been an easy thing. I mean, heck, if you even look back to 2005, the thought process was back then that, unfortunately, this is the lay of land. Mike Gundy comes in, brand new coach, has to kick 20 some odd players off the team. We knew that it was going to be a rough season, but even that team was capable of fighting no matter what. We even knocked off a top 25 Taco Recum Tech team that season. But since then, there has never been a time where Oklahoma State fans felt like we were ever going to go backwards. We were so predispositioned over the last 20 years to just automatically assume that Mike Gundy is going to, at worst, have a 7-win season, because that was always the expectation. Mike Gundy never fell below 7 victories, hardly ever. And before Mike Gundy, 7 victories was like the creme de la creme. It was the Super Bowl season. Before Mike Gundy, having a Bedlam W once every 15, 20 years was successful. Yes, his Bedlam record was the only real tarnish on his career until this previous season, until this absolute drubbing by Oregon and Eugene. But regardless of how this thing concludes, I think all of us from a week-to-week basis can be massive fans of Mike Gundy. And I do think that if we have a stretch here where we lose a couple games, then maybe we should shift and make homecoming about Mike Gundy. So at least Mike Gundy is going out to some degree the right way. I think all of us would agree that it would be great if Mike Gundy would go out after a 9-win season, 10-win season, something that he's given us tons of that we haven't had previously. But at the same point in time, I think all of us also realize that if Mike Gundy did have a 9 or 10-win season again, perhaps we slip a little bit further away from being relevant in today's age of college football. At the end of the day, the ideal scenario, in my opinion, would be for the Cowboys to get hot and at least stake a claim for having the ability to go to Arlington. And so that way we don't have to look back negatively at Mike Gundy's entire tenure at Oklahoma State, because TCU fans, for the most part, they appreciate everything Gary Patterson gave to them. But there are some in the fan base that remember that we hung on too long to Gary Patterson, per se. I just don't want Mike Gundy to ever be viewed that way. I've had my qualms with some of the things that Mike Gundy has said or done, or the way that things have kind of operated, at least, from an external lens. But at the end of the day, I want Mike Gundy to go out the right way. It just feels wrong to know that he is in the Ring of Honor, Hall of Honor. He's going to have a statue. He earned all of that, deserves all of that. And I don't want this season or the previous season, next season, any of that to completely tarnish. It's kind of like that old heavyweight boxing champion. You don't necessarily want him to keep fighting because it's probably not great for him and his health. But you also want to see him kind of go out with a victory. You want to see him go out with a knockout punch. So the rest of this season, I hope this is an opportunity for the roster to rally around Mike Gundy and say, you know what? We can't let this dude go out this way. Like, if we're looking at another 3-4 win season, hopefully there's enough fight in that locker room for Mike Gundy, regardless of how their feelings are currently about the current state of Cowboy football. But just an understanding that you need to try to send this dude out in style, even if it's not this season per se. But we're about to find out from a gut check perspective what this team is about. Todd Grantham, his fight song has been "Don't Flinch." Well, this is an opportunity for Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy to prove that we're not going to flinch. Just like you don't need to flinch whenever you're watching the game days. Allow the food to be brought to you, because it's almost the weekend again. It's almost time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Previously for Oklahoma State, right? I think we'd have to go with Trent Howland, powered by DoorDash. And just like Trent can win on Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks, you can continue to win as well by being able to save every time you order. These players, like Trent Howland, like previously with Wendell Gregory, they're going to help you deliver when it matters most. For Locked On Oklahoma State fans, if Trent Howland was your dude that carried the Cowboys for the Oregon game, make sure that you get big deliveries in big ways as well. Do not hesitate. Do not, do not be scared of the fact that there's not going to be a delay if you order the food you want with DoorDash. If you keep watching week after week, there's going to be performances that continuously pop up. Hopefully we get more from Trent Howland as the season progresses. Be a winner like Trent and get your stuff delivered to your door. DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks, so you can save every single Saturday that you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive for Trent Howland. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Period. Promo code ends the 18th of November. So make sure that you get squared away today with DoorDash right to your delivery to keep your Saturday streaks alive. Also, we have to talk about Mazda being the one to move you and to allow you to make some moves in life. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than just simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every single ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else since August of 2025. This is an opportunity for you to get with the vehicle, to get with a company that you know is going to help you do things right, get you down the road the right way, and get to cruising on to the next destination you have in life, whether it be to work, whether it's to go catch a game. Be more than just a daily driver. Be somebody that is invigorated every time you get behind the wheel, and allow Mazda to be the one to help you do that, especially with their all-wheel drive standards and almost every crossover SUV. You can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like Oklahoma State Cowboys, we're going to sweat every detail. Mazda is going to do the same because they're going to make every move count. Impossible becomes irrelevant when you have Mazda. Get with Mazda to move and be moved. All right, so yes, the Todd Grantham terminology that is being reverberated around the locker room has been "don't flinch." That has been the calling card. That has been the war cry for all spring and all fall. Well, unfortunately, against Oregon, we did a ton of flinching. So now this is, in my opinion, an opportunity for Todd Grantham, this entire Cowboy roster, to prove a point. Should you beat Tulsa? Yes. Should you beat Tulsa with half your starters out of halftime? Yes. Does that mean it's going to happen? No, it doesn't. If you go back and look at the UT Martin game, who just lost to UTEP like 41-14 or 41-17 maybe, it does validate that there's some things that Oklahoma State can continuously clean up. So we have to prove something here. We have a bye week this week. We need to prove that we're capable of going up through adversity, right? There were some former players, like Clint Shelf, Deon Amati, were discussing life after a loss in Boone Pickens Stadium traditionally is not very fun. A loss to this degree, it's kind of uncharted territory for the most part in Stillwater, unless you were on the 06 team that dealt with all of the trials and tribulations that the 05 team provided. I mean, that was expected. This was unexpected. So now what is expected is this team to show some fight. The downside to having a team full of transfer portal dudes, as we've seen previously, is the cohesiveness, the camaraderie, the ability to fight for your battle buddy in the locker room becomes a little bit more disconnected. And what made Mike Gundy so successful for so long was his ability to get those 2 stars and those 3 stars and build them up. And they'd be integral parts of the Cowboy culture. They'd be the foundational pieces that allowed Cowboy culture to carry on, and continue to get bigger. But now it's different. So now it's that proverbial gut check for everybody on this roster. Because now it's just about more than prolonging your college career. Maybe there's individuals in that locker room who don't feel like Oklahoma State's going to get the most out of them. Okay, maybe. But now you have to go put something on display. You have to go show NFL executives or scouts or other colleges that whatever happens at Oklahoma State this season is not indicative of your particular talent level. This is an individual opportunity for guys to put some stuff on film, to prove that what happened at Oregon isn't going to be the story of the players on this team. This is an opportunity to prove that you're worth whatever you're getting in NIL. And on the other side of that coin, this is an opportunity to prove that you're worth more than you're currently getting. Again, if we believe that there's going to be these multiple reassessments of your NIL throughout the course of the season, then you also have to believe that you're going to be able to put the guys in a position to earn more money. And these coaches as well. A lot of these coaches carry a big stick because of their SEC ties, because of their NFL experiences, because of their different stops of being, coached under guys like Nick Saban and Dan Lanning, or generally speaking, some of these coaches probably want to be head coaches. So they were coming to Oklahoma State to prove that they have what it takes. And after the Oregon game, the only proving that our staff did was that we have a lot of work to still do. Mike Gundy mentioned wanting to potentially simplify things, right? Go back to the KISS methodology. We'd heard that the complexity of this Todd Grantham defense was likely to cause some problems occasionally. But that's okay whenever you schematically put your players in the best positions to be successful. So even if you scheme yourself the wrong way, the players sometimes can overachieve. But if you can't scheme them appropriately, it's hard to allow athleticism to take over. So this is a don't flinch moment for the coaching staff as well. This was the most exciting offseason we've had in quite some time. Because Mike Gundy did what Mike Gundy never does, and he fired people. And then we bring people in and pay them more than we paid anybody from our previous staffs, indicating that we understand the lay of the land has shifted, and the staff needs to make more money so they're more productive and more efficient. So now you have to prove that you're worth that money too, right? If you're a Todd Grantham and you're getting $1.3, $1.4 million, whatever the case is in your first year, well, that's because you bring a lot of SEC clout with you. You bring a lot of NFL cachet with you. You brought a lot of your staff with you. So you need to go prove that don't flinch isn't just something that you're going to say. You need to find a way to inspire the team to play the game that way, to approach this week of practice that way, Maybe they are going to run a bunch of stadiums. Maybe they are going to run a bunch of suicides. Maybe they are going to push the guys until they puke, as they should. It's a gut check time. So whether you're getting top dollar for NIL, very bottom dollar for NIL, you need to afford opportunities for those guys to prove that they're either worth it or not worth it. And the same needs to be said about the coaching staff. And we're paying Meacham more than we paid Dunn. We're paying Grantham significantly more than we were paying Nardo. I believe that even the position coaches are likely getting more than the previous position coaches that they've replaced. And some of those dudes have been here for 14, 19, 17-ish years. So this is a don't flinch moment for everybody on this roster. How are they going to handle this week of practice? And more importantly, what are the coaches going to choose to reward? What are the coaches going to choose to essentially punish to some degree as well? This is a gut check time. And if don't flinch is really the mantra that we've been living by for the last 3 months, 4 months, whatever the case may be, then we're about to find out. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. This week of preparation will determine how we play against Tulsa, most likely. So we can't just say don't flinch. If it's going to be the terminology used, we need to show it. Before we skedaddle on off here, I do have to remind the fine folks out here that FanDuel is everything you need for your betting season. The NFL season is upon us, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for any kickoff with can't-miss offers. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your $5 bet is a winner, you can get up to $300 back in bonus bets that you can use all across the app. You're going to love using FanDuel because it fits whoever you would like to bet with and however metrics you would like to use to capitalize on the betting, whether it be player props or building a same-game parlay or jumping in the live action as soon as the games start. It makes every game more exciting because your investment level is deeper, whether you're just watching your favorite team or you're keeping an eye on a fantasy lineup. It is quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to your game day weekends. So if you're ready to play, make sure that you go download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. Go there today to place your first $5 bet. If it is a winner, you get $300 back in bonus bets to continue to utilize as you capitalize. All right, before we get on off of here, I think another thing that Mike Gundy was getting at with, the KISS methodology, keep it simple, stupid, is the communicational factor. And we do know that this was a little bit of an obstacle this previous season as well. The complexity of this defense was going to magnify that situation. And after the Oregon game, Mike Gundy mentioned a couple different times that he thought maybe we were trying to do too much. We were trying to implement too many things. We were trying to get too complex or too creative. Well, part of cutting things down to the simplest form is communication. So it's very evident that the complexity that Todd Grantham tried to bring mixed in with the communication was going to be a problem. Again, we've got to do a better job scheming the players to be in the right positions. But on top of that, they have to be able to communicate what they're doing so that way the player next to them or the guy on the other side of the line knows what he needs to be doing, right? Because it's not as simple as having stunts and twists and blitzes from multiple angles. You have to have that. But you also have to make sure that it's communicated properly and it's gone through the right channels via the players so there's no confusion. Communication is key. I think we could all make the argument that communication is key in a lot of things. Most things in life, whether it be work or football or marriage, is because conversation doesn't happen appropriately. This is applicable in football, obviously, because we knew that there were some issues. So perhaps in some of this conversation in regards to simplifying things for this Cowboy team, hopefully we can simplify communication because you can run a great defense, you can have great athletes, great players, but if they're not communicating things properly on the field, then obviously the complexity level is probably too much. So one thing that we need to work on, likely, in my opinion, as we get prepared for Tulsa, is simplification, but also simplification through communication. The better communication you have, and this is why players that typically return from years of playing together have an advantage over a younger team or a primarily transfer portal led team, is because it takes less communication. It takes less words to announce, well, I'm going to be at this spot, or I'm going to get this tight end, or I'm going to cover this running back if he goes this direction. So if we're going to simplify things, let's make sure that we're simplifying everything through communication, because I think even what we witnessed yesterday is just a lack of communication. People shouldn't be afraid to have dialogue. Disagreements oftentimes do come from dialogue, but there's disagreements inside the locker room. There's disagreements amongst the coaching staff. And if you don't get over these disagreements via communication, then you're just going to harbor resentment. And resentment can kind of fester up and eventually become anger. When your anger can cause you to be spiteful. So, yes, football show leaning. We try to cover a ton of sports, but just like in football, if communication starts to go sideways or it shuts down completely, then you're left to assume and presume things, or you're left to just take the opinions or advice from other people. I think that it's imperative that we stay communicative in this show because I do read the comments. I do try to be involved, interacting with comments. Obviously, it's a lot easier to do that in the first day, but what you guys say in the comments does matter towards the direction of this show. It's the same reason that I went scorched earth on Oregon, because no matter what was discussed, no matter what was mentioned, no matter how many statistics were brought up, and it didn't seem to matter. And ironically enough, Charlie Kirk was an Oregon fan. And also, ironically enough, for as much as I caused some animosity with some Oregon fans, the interaction I've had with them over the last 24 hours has been surprisingly pleasant and beneficial. And lastly, you notice I didn't record yesterday. It's because I don't traditionally hide my emotions well, right? I wear my heart on my sleeve, as some would say. But it was also conveyed to me this morning that maybe there's a couple people that want to watch shows to temporarily remove themselves from the craziness and chaos that is surrounding us. Therefore, I wanted to come out and talk about this and how communication is all that Mr. Kirk was trying to foster. Do you have disagreements with some of the things he said? Sure. Do you have disagreements with some of the delivery? Absolutely. But it's important that we in this community, we talk about Oklahoma State, the good things, the bad things. We share the news. We share information. We share opinions. We share our thoughts. And that is important for any positive direction moving forward. So I want to say shout out to all the regulars, aka regulators. I appreciate you. And hopefully we got to kind of go down the memory lane for Mike Gundy and remember that he's the reason we have the expectations that we have. So hopefully the team can rally amongst themselves, and we as a fan base can rally together to hope that Mike Gundy gets everything squared away this season and at least goes out the right way. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it, dislike it. If you didn't, that's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I know you know that. So I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Say a prayer for Mr. Charlie Kirk and his family. And we'll do this again here before too long. All right, y'all. Later, my taters.